In Hong Kong, Special Agent Lin is driving while talking with his daughter's doctor, who explains her leukemia has put her in a critical condition and she may not survive tonight's procedure. Lin promises to be there soon and speeds up, dodging other cars like crazy and even going over the sidewalk to avoid traffic. Soon he gets a call from Agent Susan about a problem with witness protection. Dr. James is a geneticist who recently defected after 5 years of working with an arms dealer researching biochemical weapons. Apparently he killed everyone in the lab including the arms dealer, so now James is hiding with a very powerful mechanical heart. Someone leaked his location so now he must be transferred to a military base. Lin wants to say no, but this is a matter of national security so he turns the car around and goes to his mission instead of his dying daughter. Meanwhile James gets an injection and starts hallucinating. He's barely responsive by the time the agents arrive to move him and the heart away. The team sneaks around the buildings to stay safe but when they make it back to their vehicles, their truck suddenly explodes. As everyone takes cover, a small robot moves on the ground and reaches another car, making it explode too. Soon someone opens fire and the agents start getting killed one by one. The enemy appears to be a squad of soldiers in black armor led by Andre, who tries to shoot James but Lin pulls him away just in time. The gunfight continues as the agents try their best to fire back, but the enemy's armor is too strong and soon Andre shoots one more car so the agents don't have cover. Lin is shot on the shoulder, however he tells Susan to take James while he stays to fight. Another agent throws a flash grenade as a distraction for Lin to slide in and save a fellow agent. However, when they reach the other side the guy gets shot anyway. The remaining team members try to run away with James, only for Andre to block their way with yet another explosion. The agent carrying the container with the heart is shot on the leg and the group loses the heart. Lin slides once again to keep on shooting and when the group tries running, Andre blows up another truck and sends them flying back. Next Lin shoots a special net at an enemy and another agent tries jumping on him, but the enemy shoots him down. Agents and soldiers start fighting hand to hand and Lin tries to stop them, only to get shot down too before Andre causes one last explosion that ends the fight in his favor. Afterward Andre shoots the guards moving James and Susan decides to fight him with her knife, showing great martial arts skills while James crawls toward the container. Sadly Andre overpowers Susan and chokes her before throwing her against the wall to knock her out. As Andre approaches James to ask for the container, Lin appears in a car and crashes against Andre, trapping him against an oil tank. Sadly Andre is still alive and starts pushing the car back, even lifting it while Lin keeps on shooting him. Since the bullets do nothing, Lin shoots the oil tank instead, causing a huge explosion that brings them both down. Lin spits blood as he thinks about his daughter, who is now flatlining at the hospital. He passes out and the call from the doctor is picked up by James. 13 years later in Australia, writer Rick releases a book titled Bleeding Steel about an American Marine implanted with a mechanical heart and blood carrying old memories. In the evening, a working lady shows up at Rick's building and the security guards get a little too handsy before letting her pass. The lady offers Rick a show while slowly getting him to drink alcohol mixed with a sedative. Once he's fallen asleep, the lady reveals to be Leeson in disguise. He's a hacker that came to get information from Rick's computer. At the same time, Andre's men appear led by the general, who immediately attacks the guards. One is quickly killed, but the other runs upstairs while the general chases after him, murdering him with a knife right outside Rick's room. Leeson hears the noise and runs to hide. When the general enters the room, she stabs Rick to wake him up and demands to know where he got the inspiration for his book. At first Rick refuses to tell so she electrocutes his head while a soldier searches the safe. As the team notices a bathtub full of water, a masked warrior bursts through the window. He throws a soldier on the table and brings the other down with a small explosive before hiding behind a funny chair as the general opens fire on him. Then he throws the chair at her, only for the general to kick it off and attack him directly. They fight over the gun and shoot down a recovering soldier, but after lots of struggle the mysterious warrior overpowers the general and knocks her out. Afterward the masked man interrogates Rick, who admits he stole the story and the original files are in his laptop. Suddenly the general wakes up and attacks again, killing Rick when the masked man dodges her blade. He fights her while using the laptop as a shield and after they exchange a few hits, the man puts an explosive on the computer before handing it to her. The general notices and throws it at the ceiling, destroying the big lights. When she turns around, she sees the man is gone and hears the police sirens, so the general escapes by jumping through the window and landing on a car. In the apartment, Leeson comes out of the bathtub where he's been hiding. He takes his memory stick from the desk computer, steals some things from the safe, and picks up pieces from the broken laptop before escaping through the back door. At the same time, the masked man goes to his home and reveals to be Lin. While he takes care of his wounds, he hears on the news that the police believes Rick was killed during a robbery. They have security footage of Leeson leaving the building so he's the prime suspect. The next day the general brings hacked footage to Andre, who runs a software that tells him the masked man was Lin. The general also tracked the purchases of Leeson's disguise. Meanwhile Leeson fixes the broken pieces of Rick's computer and discovers a bunch of files regarding a young student named Nancy, who grew up in an orphanage. At that moment the general and her men burst into the address they found, but the costume is waiting there as a joke and Leeson is watching it all from a security camera. When the general leaves, she's seen by another camera, this one set up by Lynn. Moments later Leeson secretly sneaks into the local college to watch Nancy from afar. Lynn is also there pretending to be a cafeteria worker. When Nancy accidentally bumps against a chair, a girl sitting there insults her with racist words. Nancy punches her in the face and a fight ensues as the other students start recording with their phones. Lynn and Leeson end up helping, separating the girls and stopping a table before a guard finally arrives. Nancy immediately walks away and notices a wound on her hand quickly healing itself. Leeson follows her and tries befriending her, but she just ignores him. That night Nancy has terrifying nightmares involving Andre and a strange experiment. Her roommate wakes her up to comfort her, but she also reminds her this is happening every night and neither of them can sleep, so she should seek help. The next day Nancy goes to a shady neighborhood to see her spiritualist, explaining her nightmares feel extremely real. While the spiritualist gets her ready for a session, her assistant secretly records everything. Using a crystal, the spiritualist puts Nancy to sleep. When the nightmares come, Nancy sees James experimenting on a lizard who manages to grow his tail back. Andre is on a stretcher and the doctors say he keeps rejecting organs, so James considers giving up on him. A furious Andre starts killing all the doctors and in real life, Nancy starts having trouble breathing as she panics. The lights in the room flicker and the spiritualist stabs her chest with a needle, making her wake up. Once Nancy calms down, so do the lights. The spiritualist tells her that there's another soul inside her and gives her a flyer promoting a hypnotist that may help her. After Nancy leaves, the spiritualist tells her assistant that Rick must have been killed because of the tapes she sold him. On her way out Nancy is surrounded by a bunch of creepy guys that won't take a no. She kicks one of them in the groin and runs away, so the others begin chasing her and eventually corner her in their gang's hanging out spot. Suddenly Leeson hits a guy in the head with a bat and knocks him out, so the gang turns their attention on him. A fight ensues full of mishaps that burn Leeson's pants, which drop when he removes his belt to use it as a weapon. Nancy grabs a can of paint and sprays the guy's eyes to distract them while she drags Leeson away. They run through a building and when the gang tries following them, they come out and lock the door behind them. Once again, Nancy ignores Leeson's attempt at friendship and leaves in a cab, but Leeson reveals he stole the flyer from her. The next day Nancy visits the Sydney Opera House and tries visiting the hypnotist, but the guards don't let her pass. Suddenly Leeson appears at the door and says Nancy is his girlfriend, bringing her inside while she notices he stole a backstage pass. Leeson tries to start conversation but an employee takes him away, thinking he's another worker. Afterward Nancy makes it to the stage, where the hypnotist agrees to use her as a subject. Nancy is put to sleep again and she sees her younger self at the hospital, revealing she's Lynn's daughter. There's a man there in the memory, but she can't see his face. At that moment Andre's soldiers appear on the stage and kill some of the workers, causing the public to run away in panic. Then the general stabs the hypnotist and throws him on the seats as the cops appear to open fire. An officer is soon killed while a masked Lynn descends onto the stage and starts fighting using some fabric. As he brings down the soldiers, he loses his mask and Leeson sees it from the control room. The general kicks Lynn to almost make him fall off stage, so Leeson activates the fireworks to keep her at bay. Lynn and the general keep on fighting as both try to grab Nancy to no avail. Lynn makes a sudden spin with the fabric to kick off the recovering soldiers, then the general fights him again to throw him through a mirror. While she takes Nancy, the soldiers come after Lynn, who uses the magic show props to defend himself. Leeson follows the general on the security cameras and tells Lynn through the speakers, so Lynn knocks down the soldiers and rushes upstairs. He blocks the general's way and forces her into another fight, causing her to let go of Nancy. Leeson uses the chance to drag Nancy into the elevator and take her away. Seeing his daughter is safe, Lynn throws a rack at the general to distract her and takes a ladder to the roof. The general follows him and the fight continues as Lynn is pushed to the edge. He kicks the general to make them both fall and she uses her daggers not to fall but also cut the cable he's holding on to. Lynn tries to spin to stay on, but the general cuts the cable again and he slides down the roof until he lands on a patio umbrella. At the same time Leeson puts Nancy on a boat, which he turns around to pick Lynn up and escape. Moments later Lynn takes them to his house. He leaves Nancy as his bed to then arrest Leeson before revealing a secret room under the stairs. He handcuffs Leeson to an exercise machine and puts down a little explosive to make him talk. Leeson explains he's like Robin Hood and what he took from Rick actually belonged to him. He only started following Nancy because he found her library pass in Rick's safe. Lynn turns off the little device which isn't a real bomb. He lied to make him talk. He leaves and locks the door saying he won't let Leeson go until he confirms his identity. While driving, Lynn gets a call from Susan, who investigated the spiritualist. She recorded all of Nancy's visits and sold the tapes to Rick, who used them to write his book. When Lynn makes it to the spiritualist's place, she and her assistant are already dead. He checks the recording room and the hard drives are also gone. At that moment he gets an alert on his watch, so Lynn rushes back to his house and finds the door open. He carefully goes inside and discovers Nancy is gone. Then he goes to the secret room to check the security cameras, confirming Nancy ran away and wasn't kidnapped. He put a tracker on her, so he can follow her location. At the same time, Nancy runs through the city as she deals with new memories that came back to her. She was dying on the operation table, but James arrived to save her. Back to Lynn, he discovers that Nancy is leaving on a plane and calls Susan for backup. Then he tells Leeson to stay away from this, giving him the handcuff keys and some dog food before leaving. Leeson realizes he can't open the handcuffs like this and has to exercise to make his hands meet. Outside, Andre's soldiers are already arriving, so Lynn hides in the fireplace. The soldiers come in and start searching the house while Lynn escapes through the chimney, and as he leaves town he presses a button that blows the house up except for the secret room in the basement. The shaking still causes Leeson to drop the key. Lynn gets on a plane to follow Nancy and remembers what happened after Andre's attack. James saved Nancy by giving her the mechanical heart and his own bioengineered blood, which erased all her memories. This gave her the regeneration ability. To protect his daughter from Andre, Lynn asked Susan to send her to an orphanage in Australia while he watched her from afar with a new identity. In Hong Kong, Susan picks Lynn up and gives him back his badge. Meanwhile, Nancy follows her memories and arrives at James' abandoned apartment, where she finds a hidden key. This triggers even more memories and Nancy sees the fight against Andre. She also finally sees her father's face and the fact he's always been there protecting her under different disguises. As she cries, the general appears behind her. Lynn is about to arrive, but he freaks out when he sees Nancy being taken away in a car. He immediately turns around and starts chasing after them, so the enemy surrounds him with both their vehicles to damage his and throw him off the road. Lynn speeds up until he's far enough to reappear on the road ahead of them, but the enemy pushes him behind again. The chase continues while someone covers the road with oil. It's Leeson, who then throws some eggs at the soldier's car so they can't see ahead. Lynn slows down when he sees the oil, but the general's car slips and flips, forcing Lynn to stop the car at the last second to survive. However, when he checks inside the vehicle, the general and Nancy are gone, and the tracker was left behind in Nancy's bag. Luckily, Leeson uses his hacking skills and steals a chip from the car to get the location of Andre's hideout. Lynn wants to leave alone, but his car isn't working, so he has no choice but to travel with Leeson on his scooter. Moments later, the general goes to a bank and uses the key Nancy found to get into a private vault. She opens a box and finds an old camera before the door closes, as it's revealed this was a trap from Susan's team and the bank workers were undercover agents. The general starts shooting the door and the walls to no avail, and a sleeping gas comes in. She kills her soldiers first. Afterward, a SWAT team retrieves the camera and brings it to Susan, Lynn, and Leeson. They find a recording of James' experiment during which he found the regenerative genes of the starfish. He used it to build the first mechanical heart and produce bioengineered blood, putting them in his first test subject, who happened to be Andre. The trio realizes Andre wants to know how to make a whole army of bioroids like himself, and he needs this recording to learn how. Andre's been kept in a sterilized room for years because he was infected, and now he needs Nancy's blood to heal himself. While Lynn and Susan discuss how to proceed, Leeson takes a closer look at the camera. In the meantime, Nancy is taken to Andre's hideout, which is actually an aircraft. Both she and Andre are connected to a machine that proceeds to transfer Nancy's blood to Andre. At that moment, the general and her two guards return and knock out a doctor, because they're actually Susan, Lynn, and Leeson. They go upstairs and take another doctor hostage to enter the lab, where all the scientists panic and start running away. Nancy and Andre are behind a glass wall and Lynn shoots it, but it won't break. Leeson brings down a doctor and demands for access to Nancy, but the doctor explains only Andre can open that door. Soon a bunch of soldiers arrive, so Leeson knocks the doctor out and pretends to be unconscious. The soldiers open fire and Lynn shoots back, this time managing to hurt them because he's using their laser guns. Susan fights them hand to hand, killing a few with her knife. Unfortunately, the soldiers just keep coming, so Lynn throws an explosive that starts a small fire. This doesn't stop the soldiers and Lynn's gun is out of power, thus he joins Susan in fighting hand to hand. One by one, every single soldier goes down, and in the chaos, Lynn almost hits Leeson too. Suddenly Andre appears and hits them both with outstanding strength. He's fully recovered thanks to Nancy's blood, and now he wants revenge. The three of them attack together. However, not even their combined efforts are enough to land a single hit on Andre's strong and fast body. Wanting them to suffer, Andre starts kicking Lynn over and over, which Nancy watches as her fury grows. Her body reacts to her emotions, interrupting the transfer process and breaking the chair cuffs. Andre picks up Lynn and is about to throw him into the generator when suddenly Nancy breaks through the glass and fires at Andre, making him drop her dad. The group starts fighting again, with Susan stabbing him in the back and Lynn trying to choke him with some cables, which Andre uses to stab him. Nancy's shot has exposed Andre's brain, so Susan stabs him directly there next. Then the trio pushes him into the generator, only for Andre to hold onto Lynn's arm. The system is starting to fail, so Susan, Leeson, and Nancy pull Lynn together and manage to save him right before the generator collapses. However, he loses an arm in the process. Afterward, the aircraft starts exploding and the group runs, but Leeson gets separated from the rest when flames block his way. As the others reach the parachutes, Andre reappears and grabs Lynn, who kicks Susan and Nancy off the ship to save them. Lynn struggles in Andre's hold and remembers everything James explained to him before dying by his bed. The cable Andre stabbed him with earlier still had some blood in it, and now that blood activates to regrow his arm. This allows Lynn to free himself and attack again, stabbing Andre with his fingers to rip out the mechanical heart. At that moment the aircraft explodes and Lynn jumps out without a parachute, losing consciousness and the heart when some debris knocks him out. Luckily Susan and Nancy are still falling nearby and use their parachutes to gently make him land in the sea. Susan swims to rescue him and he resurfaces to reunite with his daughter while Susan gets a call telling her the files in the camera are gone. Sometime later, Susan, Lynn, and Nancy are having fun together at the amusement park. While Nancy goes to buy food, Susan shares with Lynn the latest update. Leeson's father was the arms dealer in the lab by Andre, so he's been getting revenge and recovering his family's assets. He also grew up in the same orphanage as Nancy, that's why he tried to befriend her. Lynn thinks back and realizes Leeson was the boy that was always nice to Nancy during her birthdays. At the same time, Nancy finds a picture of the orphanage among her food, but when she turns around the cellar is gone. The next day Leeson is chatting with different leaders to see who will pay more for the camera footage he stole. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.